Hi, I'm Daniel, and before the episode starts, I want to briefly talk to you about the Garden Outreach Project, a WCF program focused on putting faith into action. Our mission is to inspire and support Christadelphians in North America to share Christ's love through outreach initiatives. This is done by facilitating national and local outreach activities, supplying resources, and providing funds to help brothers and sisters serve those in need. For example, in 2020, over 40 ecclesial groups participated in our Bags of Love initiative, which saw over 800 sleeping bags distributed to shelters and those without a home. If you, your ecclesia, or CYC want to learn more and get involved with our latest initiative, please visit our website at www.thegardenoutreach.org. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Garden Outreach for the latest news and encouragement. And now, here's the show.
Welcome back to Little Faith. I'm Levi, and I'm here with Peter Clausen. How you doing, Peter?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Levi.
It's a treat to see you.
It's been too long, and it's so good to see you as well.
You had some health problems, but it's also just been a crazy year for everybody. What's your year been like?
I think the beginning, like a year ago, when we first got into this pandemic, the challenge was with the music that I was doing frequently in a number of places and having lots of activities revolving around that and singing. Just everything was pretty much normal, which I loved. However, everything just stopped short and said, okay, you can't do that. And it became one of a challenge just trying to stay motivated and involved when you couldn't have any performances or you couldn't make music with others, which is part of my life for sure. So I found it challenging to live through that. And then we got through the holidays, and the same thing was going on with the holidays, and it wasn't quite the same. And then when January rolled around, we were still in the kind of a void. All of a sudden, one morning, I woke up and I felt like my right leg and my right arm were still asleep. And walked down to the piano and sat down at the piano and started to play. And my left hand did fine. And my right hand was like a 2-year-old sitting on my lap, pounding at the keys. It was just like being a different person entirely, or like starting my life again. And I was still, barely able to play the piano with my right hand. So that was a shock. So we went to the hospital, and fortunately, my wife took me there, and they were extraordinary with me, and they analyzed me, and then finally determined it was a stroke, and started doing tests on all the veins and all the things that get blood to the brain and all those kind of things, and determined that most of those looked good, but I still had a stroke. So after all the tests and about 3 or 4 days in the hospital, they determined what it was and what I'm going to need. And I was just thinking, I just can't wait to get home, because the hospital is not a fun place to be usually. Right. And when I was talking to the doctor, trying to find out when I'd be actually released, he said, it would be ideal if you could get to therapy right away. And I'm going, oh, where would that be? And he said, well, we have a facility and I can check. And it's a fabulous rehabilitation type therapy. And I can check to see if they have a bed available. And he came back later that day and said, yes, there's a bed available. And they're expecting you this evening. And I said, wow. So a short ride in the back of an ambulance after dark, I didn't know where I went. I wound up in a building, knowing it wasn't far from the hospital, but where, I don't know. And I was admitted about 10 o'clock at night and went to bed pretty soon and slept through the night. Woke up the next morning, and then all these wonderful people came in to assist me with all the things I needed. And they made me feel like I was at a spa. and they were just wonderful. And then they scheduled the therapy, and therapists were extraordinary as well, like my best friends. However, they had a goal of making sure that I got better. They were excellent in how they approached it. I never thought they were doing a job. I thought they were my best friends, and they wanted the best for me, and they wanted to keep encouraging me and pushing me forward. Every day I would have speech therapy, and then occupational therapy, and then music therapy, and then physical therapy.
Wow.
most of the day. And they were extraordinary in how they applied everything, and they helped me understand little things that I didn't know.
Right.
We get to a point in our lives where we do things automatically until they don't happen. And now it's,
Yeah.
how do I make them happen again? Because I can't
Yeah.
start at 2 years old and work this thing out over the years. So they gave me exactly what I needed to do to improve. They showed me the muscles that controlled how I walk evenly, and they showed me the right hand, how the fine dexterity goes, and how you button a shirt. Like I put on the shirt today, and I could call it
Yeah.
therapy. I tied the tie. I call that therapy now,
Right.
because for quite a while I couldn't tie the tie. I put it on my left hand and start my, and then the brain is going, okay, right, and take over. What do I do? It
Yeah.
just wasn't there. And
Weird.
I said, you know how to do this. You've been doing this all your life. Come on, just do it.
Right.
And it
Right.
didn't. And so it
Huh.
took me figuring out what it takes to tie a tie cerebrally, so that I can
Right.
understand what it is, and then to train the right hand how to do that as if you were starting over again. The fear I had originally was that if the piano could just barely play the piano, I don't have time left in my life to get back to where I was before.
Oh.
It's going to take too many years. But
Yeah.
as God always does, He never gives us more than we can handle. And
Right.
He allowed me to improve day by day, as if I was going month by month and even year by year. And so I'd go from 0 to 60 in one day, and then I keep going. It's been really a wonderful experience to realize how incredible the brain He gives us is, and how we learn to do things, and how we find, if the road is closed, we find a detour somewhere and we go around and we come back out the other end. And it takes a while
Yeah.
to figure that out, but it works. I was all my life in a vein of saying my left brain was there when I learned about music and how to play notes and all these kinds of things. And then I'm pretty much done with the left brain. Now I'm in the right brain, which is where we take music from the page and make it come to life. Without that, it's just kind of computer type music. It doesn't have the emotional feeling that it needs. And so I'm saying the right brain is there, it knows what it wants, but the right hand, which is controlled by the left brain, isn't responding. And so
Right.
I could feel what I wanted, but I couldn't do it. And
Fascinating.
it is a fascinating thing. But fortunately, God kept saying, keep on going. And my therapist kept trying this, try that. See if you can do this. And I would do it, and they, oh, great! See if you can do this. Oh, good! That's wonderful! All the positive reinforcement one needs to keep on going and working
Right.
as hard as you possibly can. Because in the morning I'd wake up with lots of energy, and I'd go to therapy, and I'd come back to the bedroom going, oh, so fortunately, Brother Greg Wakert, a brother in our collegium, was good enough to come over to the house and pick up my keyboard and bring it over to the rehab center and set it up in the bedroom they had there, under the window, so I could sit there and start playing the piano and start realizing that, oh, it's coming back. I'm doing this, and so forth. And it just is mind boggling what you can
Yeah.
do with God's blessing and His encouragement and practice.
I should do some sort of an introduction for anyone who's never had the pleasure of meeting you, but music is a huge part of your life. Besides, you're very involved anytime that you're at a gathering or your church's events or anything like that. But you also you work with the symphony, right? Or you did before COVID?
Yes, I'm in the Cleveland Orchestra Chorus. And so when we
Right.
do a work that involves a choir, we, the choir, sing that. So it's a
Nice.
huge privilege to sing with one of the best orchestras in the world, and to
Right.
make music come to life and so forth. So I get a lot of training there, and it was amazingly helpful, because when the speech therapist said to me, you're tending to swallow your last syllable, or your last consonant isn't getting enunciated, then I could revert to my musical training and experience of the chorus, where we have to make sure that the audience hears and understands what we're singing. So I had to
Right.
go into a kind of a musical overlay on top of the
Yeah.
spoken voice. Use the
Interesting.
rules from here and bring them back to here, and then really enunciate very carefully. And when one thinks
Yeah.
about it, one can do it. Normally, when we're talking, we don't think much about that. But there are
Right.
so many issues in music with a long note, or in a hymn like we've seen on Sunday. We get to a long note. The normal feeling is that you would get to the note and put the consonant on the end of it, except if you've got 4 more beats or 3 more beats to sing before you're done. So it's the concept of saying, I'm singing the word no for note, and I'm going no, and that's where the T goes. And so even though it's not going to be delayed in speaking, whereas music, you'd hold it and do something with it and then put it on, at least I could have that cerebral ability to say, I need that T. Otherwise, the word is no and not note, or the word is life and not lie. There's so many things where a consonant can make an entirely big difference. So I was blessed, as God always does, with what I needed to be able to apply my thinking toward achieving what I need to do to improve.
Interesting. Amazing. And you had your stroke in January. And then you were in the hospital for how long? And then
4
how long were you
days.
at the facility? 4 days at the hospital?
4 days hospital and almost 4 weeks at the facility.
Wow.
I kept thinking I'd be going home.
You've been home for a few weeks then now. It's the middle of April.
Right. I think I got home in late February. So I've been home since then. Yeah.
Good.
And I started out in the hospital in a wheelchair. And then I was at rehab with a therapist. I was in a wheelchair all the time, unless I was working with them on something specific. Back to the wheelchair to go back to my room, whatever. And you have this requirement. You don't get out of the wheelchair unless you have somebody with you, because one, they want to make sure you don't fall, and need more therapy, and at the same time be protective of you. They were good about that. And then finally, on the day I left the rehab facility, and my wife Melanie picked me up, they wheeled me out to the car, and I got in the car, and we drove home. And it was only then where I started to be able to move around a little bit on my own, and found that I carefully could walk. I had done so much therapy, that leg was there to do what it needed to do. Now I'm careful that I'm interesting enough, not talking as I'm turning and walking, because the brain is only capable of so many things at first. And you have to reincorporate those things and make them automatic so that you can do multiple things at the same time. And I found that I need to make sure that when I'm backing up, I'm a little more careful than I normally would be. Or if I'm going down the stairs and I'm carrying something, now be careful how you do that, So there are little nuances that I'm finding are necessary in order for me to do well and not fall and improve. And even on the stairs now, I walk upstairs, and as I step on a step, I'll step there, and then I'll put my heel off of the step and practice lowering my heel down and back up again, because that was what I was learning in therapy. So all these things in therapy can be done, a lot of them at least, done here at home. And then in my outpatient therapy, which I went to at the hospital with other therapists, I spent everything until last Friday with them, usually 5 sessions a week of therapy as well. And again, they were taking me to the next step and to the next level. And they were extraordinary and so motivating that I just had to do it. And I once again go out there in the morning, and then I get ready to come home, and I'm just exhausted, like I need a nap. And sleeping is good for people that have had a stroke. Sleep is good for the brain to help recover. I mean, so I sleep more than I normally would.
Good.
But now I've been determined to have what they call sleep apnea, and that's what really caused the stroke in the beginning. So we're now defining what it was, and today is Wednesday. So Friday, I go to location and pick up an apnea mask and start that.
It's funny. I have a coworker that I travel with. We go on, work trips, and he has had sleep apnea for years, and he's always that's his carry-on. So he carries. We get on the airplane back when we could fly, and he's rolling his bag, and then he's got his sleep apnea mask that he carries on, and it's obviously important, but it's because he needs it for his good sleep. But
exactly, I hear that's what's so important. My son-in-law, Guy Custer, I found out now has sleep apnea for a couple of years now, and he says it makes a huge difference. I was in my mind thought of people doing that, saying, "Oh, it's got to be an inconvenience and all that," but he said his sleep has improved dramatically. I was determined that when I did a sleep study at the hospital, they said you have 54 instances over each hour where you are not breathing when you should.
Wow.
That's almost 1 a minute.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And apparently at least one went way too long, and we didn't get oxygen to the brain where I needed it. So that was the reason for the stroke. So
Yeah.
I'm hearing now that it will change my life. So I'm looking forward to not having to sleep as much as I have been recently, and being
Yeah.
able to have that renewed energy from that. But again, improve with everything else. I'm finding the piano is getting better every day. It's like such a blessing to wake up and sit on the piano. Oh, I couldn't do that yesterday. Now I can do it. Now it just keeps getting better every day. God is so good to us. Oh,
Yeah, I can't imagine the scare you'd be under knowing that you might not be able to play again. I can't even, that would be heartbreaking. So,
for a moment it was. And I
yeah,
said, no, wait, God does provide. And
yeah,
I know he'll do it. The other thing I
good.
should warn you about is that one of the things with a stroke is that your emotional governor gets broken, and I can go from being serious to crying in a heartbeat. And so I have to be careful with that. So,
Peter, I would say your emotional governor was already gone before that happened. So we're all okay.
Totally.
We're all okay. You're you've always been very pure and beautiful with what you're feeling. So
it's now on a very short trigger too.
that's good. No, thanks for. I'm sure that nobody will be bothered, but it's good to explain why that's happening. I think it's been fascinating you talking about recircuiting, and because it's crazy how many things we don't even think about that we do. How many operations our brain does in our body that we don't even think about. Like actually, I just realized while I was talking to you, I just scratched my shoulder and I scratched my ear, because I had an itch. But I was saying something to you. But I didn't even ever decide to do that. My brain just controlled my fingers up to do that while we're having this conversation.
It's amazing. There was a story, just to share a little bit about right brain, left brain, all this stuff. A story that I read years ago, because I always was curious about why I felt more right brain, more creative. And I did a test on the internet, and in 21 questions, and they said, answer the first question. It's really multiple choice. Answer with your first instinct and go with it. I did all 21 questions, and out of 21, I had 21 right brain answers. So I was not using this brain over here much at all. And I could understand why I felt different than a lot of people, because it just isn't the same. A lot of people love mathematics and stuff like that. And for a time, I did get into that with learning music. And I said, oh, we're done with that now. It didn't float my boat anymore. But now I'm realizing what it does and why the brains are so incredible, and why we as humans can start to apply a thought process to saying, maybe I need to be in my right brain more often than I'm not. Maybe I need to take singing hymns in meeting on Sunday with more emotion to make them come to life, instead of singing almost as if we are an automatic pilot and just going through the process and wondering what if the roast will be done before we get home and all that kind of stuff, which we can do because we can multitask up here. But there are times when we probably shouldn't be multitasking. And so we have to consciously be aware that we need to put everything we're doing in the right perspective. And the issue that came out of the study, I had looked on the internet, there was a story about a gentleman that had been in a horrible car accident. And apparently something in the car had cut down the back of his head, sliced it open, and actually separated his left brain from the right brain. And there's an organ called the corpus callosum that connects the two together. And what we'd call in the computer business, we call it a bus, but it connects them together. And we use that connection all day long to make things happen, And what I learned from that was that in his instance, it had totally separated the two brains. So he had a left brain and a right brain, and they could not communicate. But the doctors had an opportunity to see what that does. And they were able to plug into his left brain only, and they would show him a coffee cup. What's this? Oh, it's a coffee cup. What are you going to do with it? I don't know. And they said, it's a coffee cup. and they go, I don't know. And then they plugged into the right brain. What's this? I don't know what that is. How do you think you could use that? And they said, it's got a handle on it. You could probably put liquid in it. You could drink it. But what's it called? I don't know. And those are the things where the brains work together so beautifully, so perfectly.
Wow.
Only God could do that. and to set that up. And so, apparently they were able to put them back together again. But that was an opportunity to do something that we would probably never do intentionally.
Yeah. Wow. I guess split brain theory won the Nobel Prize for science in the early 80s, and it was this study on the man who had the split brain.
Okay. Yeah.
Fascinating. We take so much for granted, and you've gone through an amazing experience where you've seen the loss, but you have most of it back, or you're on your way back. That is quite a blessing.
I can't tell you in words. I can't.
Yeah.
I have to share with you in the future with music. That's the only thing
Yeah.
I could best describe this.
Yeah, I liked your point about how we need to be focusing on the things that we're doing in the moment. And I've been thinking a lot about that with hymns, how if the words are important, what you're saying is important, but if the emotion is not there, what are you doing? Exactly. If the feeling is not there, what is it, a performance? No, it's not a performance. It has to be something that elicits a feeling in you.
Exactly. Yeah.
It has to be.
You're right. It's a good point about the performance. We're not performing, but we want to share with God our joy and just wondrous feeling about what we can do here. Not that we can multitask and think about the roast at the same time, or the football game that'll be on this afternoon. We're so amazing with our intellectual qualities that we can multitask all kinds of things, but do we get what we want out of it at the time? And I submit that Sunday morning isn't a time to be multitasking regarding other things in your life. It's about him. And he is so good to us by allowing us that privilege. And we have, a lot of us have to, especially a lot of men. I don't actually admit to being a total man, because there are a lot of feminine feelings in my heart, my mind, and singing that I blend together. So I think of myself as a mixture, but the concept of being able to get emotional about what you're singing and really get involved and change the volume and downplay the particles of the hymn verse and play up the verb or the nouns that are so critical. And we tend to sing, because most of us don't have a lot of background in singing, we tend to sing almost if we're doing everything the same. Every word is the same importance and so forth. And so we have a monotone speaking while we're singing, because we aren't feeling the difference between those lyrics. But if we put into play a concept of, I want to bring out the word the Lord instead of the Lord, I find a huge difference in how I feel about it. And when I feel better about it, I do better. My thought process is better. I incorporate more things that I'm hearing. It's just incomparable how we can do things, but we can get into a mode where we don't normally do that without thinking about it. And I would submit that we all ought to be thinking about how we can be more emotional and praise God every time we can. And I do it multiple times. For instance, a lot of us in my age are saying things like, I went up to the bedroom and I could not remember why I went there. And I find myself in the basement where I do some work, and I think, I want to go to the bedroom to get something. So I walk upstairs, and we have 4 levels with 7 stairs each level, so all the way up and all the way up, and get there and going, oh, why did I come up here? It drives me crazy. Then I go back downstairs and I go, oh, that's right. I wanted to get my wallet because I wanted to pay that bill online or something, Oh, well, okay. But what happens is there's a part of our left brain that actually identifies everything our eyes see to allow us to say, oh, there's the couch, or there's the TV, or there's the kitchen, or there's the living room. And so it's automatically doing that all day long. And so I'm trying to get to the bedroom to get one thing, and it's saying, gosh, TV, flooding me with information that I don't need, right? So that can happen. And it's a struggle to overcome that, because you're getting flooded every time you go through a door jam. Oh, all these new things, here we go. And as I did one day, I don't know what made me do it, but I said to myself, you know what, the right brain could be helpful here, because I want to change this from an item that I'm trying to get to an experience that I'm trying to achieve. And the right brain is going to be more experiential than the left brain. It's going to be methodical. So I would say to myself, oh, Johnny Cash, he had that wonderful song called I Walk the Line. And so he'd hum and they'd go, I walk the line down. So I just changed the words to, I walk the stairs to get my credit card. I'm going to pay that bill online right now. And when I do, I'll be done with that. That's why I walk this stairs like that, And I found that every time I get to the bedroom, I know what I want because I was singing it in my right brain while the left brain is going couch, TV, living room. So the right brain can overpower that if you think about it. So it's just fascinating how that can all work.
Yeah.
So I rarely get anywhere where I don't know what I want because I sing a lot.
That's funny. Yeah. It's amazing what you can do to make things more memorable by making that attachment or kind of combining those things, and keeps it sticky, keeps it memorable.
Make it an experience, and we tend not to forget experiences. When we get older, we forget all the things that we did. But like 30 years ago, I did this because it was an experience rather than just an activity. And that's critical. The more we do that, so people that are my age and older remember what they did when they're young, but not so much what they did yesterday. And that's another part of, did we make that experience, or did we make it just an activity?
My favorite book, that's not the Bible, obviously. My favorite book is called Moonwalking with Einstein. It's by Jonathan Safran Foer. It's actually a book all about memory and how to improve your memory. And it highlights these different things, and it makes a couple points I wanted to bring out. One was, it talks about how our spatial memory is actually the most powerful memory. Wow. Like you can have been to, like that hospital room or that where you were for 4 days. You actually remember tons of information about that room, but you can't remember what you had for dinner last week, which doesn't make sense. The last week was last week, but you have all this information saved in the places that we've been because it's the most powerful form of memory. And then
exactly.
The other one, and you were talking about experiences, is that this book, Moonwalking with Einstein, talks about, his quote is really good. If you want to live a memorable life, you have to live memorably. You have to live in a way that will help you remember the things that you're doing. And exactly. The book talks about how your brain doesn't save repeated actions, which is why you can't remember what you had for dinner last week. You've sat down and had dinner at the table thousands of times. Your brain doesn't save all those times. You drive through McDonald's and you get a Big Mac. You only ever remember what one Big Mac tastes like. You don't remember all the Big Macs that you've ever had. Exactly. Your brain just dumps those memories. Yeah. And that's how life can feel like it can speed up too. Life speeds up because and I think the pandemic has actually been a really interesting examination of this for a lot of people, because your activities became even less. And now the time went fast because I did the same thing. All the days looked the same, and my brain just started dumping the repeated memories.
Exactly.
So we need to, and it all leads back to the same point that you need to be in the moment when you're at church or doing whatever, because you need to live in a focused, memorable way. Make that an experience.
We need to be able to get from a service on Sunday to service on next Sunday throughout the whole week. Yes. So we need to make that a special experience that we can take with us and recall throughout the week, and then get us through to Sunday. We do it again. And especially now with the pandemic, where many of us have not been able to be there, and we're doing this on television. Now there's an opportunity, unfortunately, where you can forget about that too. I mean, it's just TV. It doesn't have the sensual quality about being at service on Sunday and all the emotion that comes with that. So we're void of many of the triggers that would bring back what we heard that day. It just seems like it's from the wrong environment.
So true.
I'm hoping that we get back to that soon.
Yeah, hopefully very soon.
Yes.
The brain's an amazing thing, just how it connects and how we can feel things. But again, it's interesting hearing you talk and thinking all the way back to the beginning. You talked about how to recover your speech, you actually return to some of your choral training to enunciate. Once you focus on enunciating, you actually are speaking better. It's attaching to a different experience, and then you're seeing progress. But that really is also a level of focus you need to have no matter what you're doing.
Exactly.
I've been trying to be more intentional with my face. I don't know if this makes sense, but I have for years, and my friends, people who know me well, will be laughing if they hear me say this, but I don't hide my emotions on my face. The emotion I'm having is the emotion that's on my face. And so I'll be thinking about something that I'm worried about, and I'll go full concerned face, And then the problem is someone new will come into the room to say hello. If someone's come over to the house, and I don't drop this face. I need to go to this face. I need to say, hey, I'm excited that you're here, I need to be able to control that deliberate action, Interesting.
It is.
What other lessons would you take from this experience?
Well, in terms of memory, another one that I learned a long time ago, but which is becoming important as well. And I had the opportunity this over the past several months to use this again. And that is that I took the Dale Carnegie class that about how to win friends and influence people. But that was probably 40 years ago when I was working. And they teach you about how to remember names because that's critical in relationships. And they would say, look at the face and associate it with something that makes you remember that name. Connect up the name with that person. And they said there are two important things that you need to do when you meet somebody, and they're very important. He said the first thing is always introduce yourself first. So, hi, Levi. My name is Peter Clausen, or rather, hi, my name is Peter Clausen. And you say, oh, hi, my name is Levi Jeleno. And so now what I've done is your name came up second, and I'm not trying to take my name out of the picture because it's already gone. So my response is, hi, Levi. How are you? Do you have any brothers and sisters? Did you grow up in this area, Levi? And where did you go to school, Levi? All your questions come in with Levi. Now it does two things. People love to hear the name pronounced. They just love it. And number two, you're going memory, and
Right.
plugging in. And it's fascinating. And so I had an opportunity when I graduated from the class after 10 weeks of 2 hours every night. Or rather 1 night a week for 2 hours. And I was back on my job, and I was invited over to the Federal Reserve Bank in Cleveland as part of my job in marketing to work with them on a huge project. They were going to remodel the bank. They were moving everything. They were taking this huge coin vault and moving it somewhere else in the building. I mean, wow, And back then, in those days, we used to transfer money from banks all over the country through a phone line. You dial up a number and send the money. Now it's much more sophisticated, but at the time that was it. They had 5 people that were coming along with me, and I knew 3 of them, and 2 of them I was meeting for the first time. So I did the same thing. Hi, my name is Peter Clausen. I'm Levi. Hi, Levi. How are you? So we went through that with the other 2 I didn't know, and then we walked into this big, huge meeting room, and there were 70 people around this huge conference table, and I said to myself, "Wow. This might be a chance to try this out." And so when the guy in charge of the meeting stood up and said, let's go around the room, introduce ourselves, and tell us what part of this job you're going to be doing. I said, great. So I saw the first person. My name is Levi, and I pictured you and Levi in my mind. I had no responsibilities once I had everybody there. I was just there to bring other people. They were all knew what they were going to do and all ready to go. So I did Levi, And then the next person, my name is Jessica. I actually do this, or I'm going to do this, whatever. Levi, Jessica. So I go through these names like this, and I went around the entire room and did that. With each new person that stood up, I started at 1 and went through to the people we've done already, and finally got up to all 70, having gone through their names. And I said, that's amazing. I never dreamed that was possible. I used to avoid people because I couldn't remember their name. And what I found was that the key element is that, one, you have to make sure that you will remember their name instead of I can never remember names. So the instructor said to the class, never say I can never remember names, because you turn your brain off and the brain doesn't play ball then. It says, well, that's a job I don't have to worry about. And it doesn't. So it's always put that importantly first. So I went around the room probably 3-4 more times during the 2-hour meeting. All right. All the way through in my mind. At the end of the meeting, I stood up and got to as many people as I could, and in order, so that I had that memorized. I said goodbye to them, and I'd say, goodbye, Levi. How'd you know my name? And so I made a point of it. And number 2 is I said it several times while we had the meeting. And so the whole concept is just incredible what our brains can do if we put them in charge of doing the job. I mean, don't tell it. You can't do this, so don't try. No. Ever since I got to the hospital, and there were like 35, 40 people there, and I had all their names. Every time I'd say hi to them, how did you do that? I made a point of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's good, because it's that discipline, that focus, essentially, is probably what's helping you with your recovery as well. Obviously, our Lord's blessing, but I mean, that you need that determination.
Exactly. And the people there, they'll do anything for you because you've already said, I remember your name. I intentionally remembered your name. And you become so important to them just by doing that, that they think more of you and they do more for you. It's a phenomenal aspect.
Yeah, it's a pretty basic way to show selflessness and love for someone is by recognizing,
Exactly.
keeping their name in your mind.
Exactly.
This has been great, Peter. Is there anything else you want to talk about through this experience? I guess about your faith specifically. Yeah. Talk about your faith.
Yeah, it has actually renewed my faith. Now, I have to thank Brother Dave Jennings. We were speaking on the phone last April, and he says, "Oh, we have a Bible study in the morning, the Verdugo Hills Bible Study Group, and you'd be welcome to join if you'd like. It's on Zoom." And so I wrote down the address and so forth, and the next day joined the class. And I have to tell you that I knew probably 3 people from the group before, and meeting each of them, and they're all extraordinary brothers and sisters, and having them along with me in my journey and saying, I'm thinking about them. I'd say it's 1:30 my time, which is their meeting time at 10:30 on your coast. And so I'd say, oh, they're doing Bible readings. I better make sure. Now, I usually was at therapy at those times, but I would make sure that when I got back, I would actually take the readings that they did and do them on my own and so forth. So I wanted to stay connected with them and that special connection to others, and especially to them because they're wonderful people, kind of gave me the incentive to make sure I kept up with the Bible readings. Now, at first, I read them to myself, and then I realized that I get more out of it when I read out loud, as if I was reading for the Zoom call. And so I would start reading out loud. And then I would say, okay, let's put some expression into that to make these words important and these not so important and so forth. And really bring this out as if we were doing this to share with other people. They would be interested. They'd be more interested if I made it more like an actual story and I brought it to life. And so I would do that. Now that triggered a lot of things going on in my mind about how I need my faith, how I need to be with them, how we need our brothers and sisters around the world. I received cards from everywhere and emails and posts on Facebook from everywhere around the world. It was absolutely phenomenal. And that love and care and encouragement can overcome anything.
Yeah.
I knew I could do it, and I knew with God's help and with their encouragement, we're going to get through this. So there was only a brief moment where I said to myself, what am I going to do with my life? I can't play the piano anymore. I just say that I define my life with that, but I do sometimes. And at least that's where the ultimate gratitude can come from, in sharing God's music with other people and bringing it to life. So that has made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah, I think,
and has kept me going. And the calls we do each day are the same way.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think it's interesting this year how we've been disconnected, but also more connected. We've lost our so much of our in-person time. We've lost our singing, but with that and with the blessings of technology, we've really been able to connect in different ways, in some ways more often and in better ways. But still, yeah, I'm looking forward to singing again, specifically in a big group, in a big place. Obviously, we know it's interesting. This disease is so specifically dangerous for that. You've heard earlier on, it was church choirs actually that were initial spreading events back a year ago.
Exactly.
And it's like a specific attack on that part of our life, but I'm looking forward to very much that changing.
That's right. The Zoom hasn't overcome the ability to try to make music work online. Everything else does real well, but music doesn't cut it, and that's been a huge loss. So videos and things like that are helpful.
Yeah, I think our ecclesia has been meeting on Zoom as well, and it feels like every Sunday there's always one moment where you're reminded that it's not perfect. The technology doesn't work exactly right. There's always one, maybe sometimes there's more. And it's such a funny reminder that we're not meant to meet this way. We're meant to meet all in person. We're not meant to meet this way, but we're thankful that we can. And again, hopefully it's not for much longer, but.
Exactly. What I find, and I've been back at meeting, we've had some of us live at meeting for a few months now. And the thing that comes up is that, one, we're not singing really big, so we're missing that. But this concept of having a video playing with music that we sing along, we tend not to be as involved in our singing as the person singing is. It's almost like we're singing along in a concert or whatever, and we're
Yes.
not taking the responsibility to actually praise God with our music. We're going through the process of it, but not really involved as much as we should be. And so I've been noticing how critical that is in order for us to get back to where we used to be, or even improve on what we used to do by saying, now there are new ideas here. We found this out and this out. And how can we be better at what we're doing on Sunday than what we even used to do? So it's a whole new world awaiting us. And with God's blessing, that'll be soon. And we can praise Him with all of our minds, all of our hearts, all of our voices. It'll be thrilling.
Yeah.
I hope my emotions
That's
can
so
handle
true.
it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Peter, for this conversation. I really appreciated it, and I hope it'll be helpful to other people as well. And I'm
do as
glad.
well.
I'm so glad you're doing well and improving, and I hope that you continue to do that. I'm looking forward to hearing you play again.
I look forward to that as well. Thank you so very much, Levi, and love to everybody
Will
all
do.
around the world in this environment. I love you. I might not have met you yet, but I love you. And we'll find a time when we can meet eventually as well. And let's make it happen. We are so incredibly blessed to have what God has given us and to find a way to make it work every day of our lives.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you as well, Levi.